How's it going? Bad with me. One took a little girl.
It is 2013, 6 years after Madeline McCann's disappearance. These are the words of Christian Brueckner, now the prime suspect in her abduction, allegedly in a pedophile chat room.
Catch something small and use it for days. Oh, if the evidence is destroyed afterwards, I will document exactly how they will be tortured. Well, let's see. Not only talking, but also doing it.
Police investigating a suspect in the Madeleine McCann case are also now looking into the disappearance of 2 other children. The 43-year-old suspect, a convicted sex offender named Christian B., is currently in a German prison on drugs offences. The cases being reviewed include the disappearance of a German boy in southern Portugal in 1996 and the disappearance in Germany of a 5-year-old girl in 2015. Our Berlin correspondent Jenny Hill has more details.
In the tranquility of the German countryside, the former home of a suspected child killer. Christian B. owned this land, lived here sometimes in a caravan. The impression you get is of a rather secretive man, someone who came and went, usually at night, who didn't want to speak to the neighbours, in fact gave the very clear impression he didn't want to be disturbed. Police have searched this land twice in the last 4 years. They found a memory stick containing child pornography, but no trace of a little German girl who went missing in 2015. Inga was 5 when she disappeared from a family party. We've been told that police still suspect Christian B. of involvement in her disappearance. There are other suspects, but detectives know he had an acquaintance who worked at the complex where the party was held. This lawyer represents Inga's father.
It's always when every few months or every few years new evidences in Inga's case appears, it is something between hope that his daughter is still alive and resignation that she might be dead already.
Christian B. first came to Portugal in 1995, on the run from Germany, where he'd been convicted of sexually abusing a child. A year later, a German boy disappeared in the Algarve. German police now reportedly looking again at the case. More details are emerging about the man whose biography is chaotic, characterised by crime. Christian B. drifted between Portugal and Germany in the years after Madeleine's disappearance. For a while, he ran this shop in Braunschweig. He's now in Kiel prison, serving a sentence for drug dealing and for the rape of a 72-year-old woman in Praia de Luz. German police believe Christian B. killed Madeleine McCann, but they say they still need the public's help if they're to bring him to justice. Jenny Hill, BBC News, Saxony-Anhalt.
Portuguese police investigating the disappearance of 3-year-old Madeleine McCann, who went missing on holiday in the Algarve 15 years ago, say they've formally identified a suspect. They haven't named them, but it's believed to be a convicted sex offender known as Christian B., who's currently in jail in Germany on drugs offences. Simon Jones reports.
Next month, it will be 15 years since Madeleine McCann disappeared. What happened to her remains a mystery, despite numerous international investigations. It's been agony for her parents. They've always clung to the hope that their daughter is still alive. But the authorities in Germany strongly believe Madeleine was murdered. And now prosecutors in Portugal, looking into what happened in Praia de Luz, have identified a suspect, a person of interest. He's not been named, but German police have been investigating this man, referred to as Christian B., a convicted rapist, in connection with Madeleine's disappearance.
Welcome to Straddled Events. On this channel, we bring you the truth. Sometimes the truth is quite ugly, unbearable, and you just don't want to deal with it. But on this channel, you're going to get it anyway. You are straddling between the fence of good versus evil, right versus wrong. And on this channel, we're going to tell you to do better. Let's go.
If innocence has a face, then surely it is Madeline McCann's. Since the night she disappeared, her anguished but unbroken parents, Kate and Jerry, have never let the world forget their daughter.
Please, please do not hurt her. Please don't scare her.
But the evil that befell Maddie may now have a name. Christian Brueckner.
I'm going to start this off by saying that we're dealing with some idiots here. Number one, the guy that allegedly kidnapped and have murdered this little girl, you're an idiot and an asshole, and your ass needs to be put to death. And then you got the parents that were so selfish that they couldn't take their children with them to go out to eat dinner. You're idiots too. Do better next time. There are creeps running around this world. It is not a time to leave your children unattended. You have to pay attention to who surround your kids, including family members and friends, because some of those people are creeps too. Do better with your children. It's not all about you. Once you have children, nothing is about you anymore. It's about your children. Now, this little beautiful little girl is presumed dead. Right now, she's definitely missing after 15 years. I have no doubt in my mind that this creep here has totally wiped this little girl's presence off of the earth. That's what you have done. And your ass need to rot in jail. You know what? I don't understand why we have to give people like this a trial. He is a serial rapist. He raped a 72-year-old woman. Why the hell do he need to be sitting in jail? Somebody have to feed his ass. Let's just wipe his ass off of the earth. And then the German authorities want to call him Christian B. No, this bastard has a last name. It's Christian Brueckner. He's 45 damn years old, sitting in jail on drug charges in Germany. He don't need to be sitting in nobody's damn jail. Just kill his ass and call it a day. Let's do that. Y'all parents do better with your children. Quit trusting your children in this world to be left alone, to be in the presence of creeps. Just do better, damn. It's ridiculous to have to do stories like this because it's evil ass people walking around in the world, and then you have the selfish people that only think about what they want, not thinking about the harm that could come to their children while they're left alone, while they're out to eat dinner. Here goes a damn story.
Good evening, I'm Liz Hayes. In recent criminal history, there is no mystery more heartbreaking or baffling than what happened to Madeline McCann. Police forces in 3 countries have spent 13 years and tens of millions of dollars searching for a breakthrough without even the barest glimmer of hope. But now that breakthrough appears to have come in the most dramatic way. In recent weeks, police in Germany and Portugal have searched sites where sex predator Christian Brueckner is known to have operated.
I see a lot of clues and a lot of evidence that he is a psychopath who has an escalating fantasy of violence, which finally maybe ended in abducting and killing Madeline McCann, yes.
Tonight, experts trace Brueckner's criminal history through Portugal, living a stone's throw from where Madeline was taken. His menacing bolt hole in Germany, where he buried damning evidence of his crimes beneath the body of his dead dog. And exclusive police records of an alleged pedophile chat room, revealing his depraved and criminal mind.
Who doesn't want to catch something small and use it for days? I will document exactly how they will be tortured.
We'll follow Brueckner's trail of shocking crimes, expose the bungles, incompetence, and at times incredible luck that may have let a psychopath escape.
In the critical first 48 hours, there were a lot of blunders and a lot of mistakes.
But But we also reveal the extraordinary breakthroughs that could finally bring justice to a little girl forever lost.
I think that this is the strongest lead I've ever seen since the first beginning of this investigation.
You can place Christian Brueckner at the scene.
Yes, we think so. We have enough evidence to say our suspect killed Madeleine McCann.
Tonight, cracking the case of Maddie and the monster. It is the night of May the 3rd, 2007. Apartment 5A on the ground floor of the Ocean Club Resort in Praia de Luz. It is where British doctors Kate and Jerry McCann have been staying for nearly a week with their young children, including 3-year-old daughter Madeline. They joined friends for dinner at a tapas bar within the resort complex, just a short distance from their apartment. Having earlier checked their children a number of times, at around 10 p.m, Kate McCann again goes back to the room. She finds Maddie missing and the ground floor window open. So begins an unimaginable nightmare for Jerry and Kate McCann.
Please tell us where to find her, or put her in a place of safety and let somebody know where she is.
The distress of her family and her parents, and I think that touched everybody's hearts.
Former head of homicide at Scotland Yard, Simon Foy, was a member of Operation Grange, the UK investigation into Maddie's disappearance.
And the thing just grew and grew and grew. And in the midst of that, the Portuguese tried to construct an investigation, and it's not easy in those circumstances.
The disappearance of little Maddie McCann electrified the community of Praia de Luz. Hundreds of local people joined the search for her, as their mayor, Hugo Pereira, remembers.
They worked tirelessly together with the authorities, joining in the desperate search to find the child. They spared no efforts in the following days to try to find Maddie.
The Portuguese people did all they could, but the Portuguese police, hopelessly divided between 3 different forces, committed grave mistakes that would compromise the investigation from the very beginning.
If it's not solved in the first 2 days, it's very likely that this is going to be a cold case forever.
Criminal profiler Mark Hoffman suspects Maddie's abductor escaped amidst the confusion at the Ocean Club and surrounding Praia de Luz.
The first 48 hours after murder or abduction, these are the golden hours for the police or law enforcement to solve this crime.
The police chosen for the ground search were not trained for the job. They were essentially security guards.
Portuguese police, they were not used to this kind of cases and to the amount and size that this case would grow into.
In Praia de Luz, Kai Feldhaus, heading up the investigative unit of Germany's Bild magazine, watched as the chaos unfolded.
In the critical first 48 hours, there were a lot of blunders and a lot of mistakes. Too many people were running in and out of this apartment. Too many people were bringing their DNA into the place where they were supposed to be looked for other DNA.
The McCann's apartment was not forensically sealed. Unbelievably, it was cleaned and rented again before DNA samples were taken. And DNA that might have still been there was potentially contaminated by police dogs taken into the apartment.
This was the worst investigation, criminal investigation, because all the samples were contaminated.
Crime reporter for Portuguese TV, Sandra Filgueiras, was at the scene on the first day of Madeleine's disappearance.
The dogs that were sent to the flat to look after Madeleine were sent before the forensic. So the most part of the samples that were collected, and there were more than 600, they were made of dogs' things.
What no one knew at the time, least of all the local police, was that just over a kilometre from where Madeleine disappeared lived a monster. Christian Brueckner, a sex predator who'd raped a young girl in Germany and who then fled to Portugal, where he'd raped an elderly woman in Praia da Luz just 2 years earlier.
It's really important to understand that many child molesters are not pedophiles.
Mark Hoffman says that from the moment 3-year-old Madeleine McCann arrived in Brueckner's domain, she was as much a target as his elderly victim.
They like to abduct easy victims. And if you ask me, elderly women and children, this is not a contradiction, this is one of the biggest similarities.
At the time of Maddie's disappearance, Portugal did not have a sex offender registry, but authorities there were made aware of Christian Brueckner's history the year before. While facing a local court on theft charges, Brueckner told the Portuguese judge he had a criminal record for child sex offences in Germany. Is it correct that he made an admission to the court about his criminal past?
Yes, it's very true. It's very true. He admitted that he did commit a felony involving sexual offences.
Public defender Serafim Vieira represented Brueckner in 2006. Intriguingly, Brueckner also told the court he had no home address in Portugal, despite having already lived there for more than 10 years.
I believe that at the time, the sexual offence that he was convicted didn't appear in his criminal record in Portugal for one simple matter. He was not a resident in Portugal. Therefore, there was no trace of his past.
Rather than reveal his residence, Brueckner chose instead to stay in prison, a term that lasted 8 months.
He said nobody can know about that address. Brueckner called to a friend, a German friend from the prison, and he asked that friend to go to that house to take all the computers and pen drives and cameras that he had there.
Whatever Brueckner was hiding there was never found. He was released from prison in December 2006 and returned to Praia da Luz, just months before Madeline McCann was taken.
He was a convicted child molester when Madeleine McCann disappeared, right? And he never got into focus. So how can it be that there's a convicted child molester living close by, close proximity, few kilometers, and it was like the first, but not by far not the last mistake that has been made.
Within days of Madeline McCann's disappearance, Christian Brueckner slipped out of Portugal and headed for Germany. A monster no one knew on the move. June 4th, 2020. After 13 years that have baffled police investigators in the UK and Portugal, German authorities make a stunning announcement in the case of Madeleine McCann.
The public prosecutor's office is investigating a 43-year-old German national on suspicion of murder. We are assuming that the girl is dead.
Their suspect is 43-year-old Christian Brueckner, a sex offender currently in a German prison for the rape of a 72-year-old woman.
Christian B, I mean, he is a serial offender in many past cases. He was criminal and he was in prison and he did it again and again and again and again, 17 or 18 times.
It's 1995, and 19-year-old Christian Brueckner arrives in the Portuguese coastal town of Praia da Luz. He lives in this house, just over a kilometre from a resort called the Ocean Club. In time, it will become one of the world's most infamous crime scenes. Brueckner comes here seeking a safe haven, fleeing Germany, where 2 years before he was convicted for the sexual assault of a young girl.
He was 17 years old, he raped a child, he got the sentence, and then he escaped from Germany and he came to Portugal. When you talk to these people that knew Christian Brueckner at that time, they all qualify him as a disturbed man that had strange behaviors that no one understood very well.
In the years that followed, Brueckner made his living as a small-time drug dealer and thief.
He was a criminal. He was responsible for more than 20 burglaries in the same area in Praia da Luz.
Brueckner's targets were holiday homes and hotels.
He was always looking for houses with the same description of Ocean Club, where Madeleine went missing. He was always going to the first floor to windows that were easy to open.
But beneath the mask of a petty criminal lurked unimaginable evil.
Yeah, when I look at his criminal record, I see a lot of crimes, but I see clearly two categories of crimes. Financially motivated crimes, but he also had a darker side. He was into violence and torture and rape against vulnerable, weak, easy victims.
Stalking the coastal roads and tourist resorts, we now know Brueckner wasn't just looking for houses and apartments to rob. He was also hunting for victims. And in 2005, he struck. It was a truly awful crime. The rape of a 72-year-old woman.
This is not just rape, this is one of the most brutal ways of rape which are possible.
Brueckner broke into his elderly victim's house and over a period of hours tortured and sexually assaulted her, inflicting extreme cruelty. According to police files, that included beating her with a metal rod.
The accused forced the naked, bound and gagged woman to stand up and beat her repeatedly on her chest, lower abdomen, arms and buttocks with a metal object he had brought with him.
The attack revealed Brueckner targeted victims of any age, from children to the elderly, as long as he deemed them to be weak and vulnerable. And in what became his hallmark as a psychopath, he videotaped the entire assault. The video, though, would eventually be his undoing.
It's about violence, it's about playing God, it's about power, it's about dominance. This is not just about sex or rape, this is about torture.
Local police investigated, but the case went nowhere. An opportunity that could have alerted this sleepy community to a monster on the prowl was lost. The victim felt ashamed and too afraid to tell even her friends.
She didn't talk about her being raped to anyone.
But was this elderly woman Brueckner's first victim in Portugal? Unnervingly similar was the terrible ordeal suffered by young Irish woman Hazel Behan. In 2004, she was raped in her ground floor apartment near Praia da Luz by an attacker she described as being young and German and who also filmed the attack. 2 violent assaults within 2 years, both bearing the same hallmarks of a psychopath. Then, on May the 3rd, 2007, in the same small corner of Portugal, the little girl whose face would haunt the world disappeared from the Ocean Club, a stone's throw from where Christian Brueckner was living.
If I look at his life and his criminal records, he's quite clear about his fantasy about abducting, torturing, and f***ing children, to name it. And this could be a serial killer in the making, and this absolutely is a red flag, yes.
To Mark Hoffman, Christian Brueckner absolutely fits the profile of a psychopath. A psychopath who, in 2007, lived just over a kilometre from the resort where Madeleine was abducted, and close to where he brutally raped a 72-year-old woman and videotaped his crime.
In reality, they don't start with like murder or rape, and this is sometimes the end of a long process of an escalating fantasy. Because if you think about it, murder or homicide is like the purest form of domination, because they choose if the victims live or die. They play God.
Christian Brueckner left Portugal in 2007 during the desperate early search for Madeline McCann. The dark pieces of his life were assembled from incidents, crimes and evidence that remained unconnected.
The new day of searching has now begun.
Until German investigators finally joined the dots this year.
There are forensic police here, police with ground-penetrating radar and also police divers.
After bolting from Portugal, Brueckner moved first to the German city of Brunswick. An insider who knew him, speaking anonymously, says for years he ran a kiosk next to a kindergarten.
There's a kindergarten and a junior school next door. They spent their pocket money on sweets here. He gave the kids lollies for free.
Brueckner has a string of girlfriends, always very young. Charming on the outside, but, says a neighbour, he is brutal with his teenage lovers.
He was very bad with women. If they didn't do what he wants, he just hit them. As I learned from his ex-girlfriend. She had once shown me that she had strangulation marks on her neck. That he had strangled her. That's it.
Violence in the relationships, absolutely typical for psychopaths and absolutely typical for people with profile of Christian B.
But even more chilling, Brueckner's friend says he talked of creating a dungeon in this his rented cottage. Just like the one Austrian pedophile Joseph Fritzl used to imprison and abuse his daughter for 24 years. And searches by German police in July this year did indeed uncover a hidden cellar in a property Brueckner once owned. May 2015, almost 8 years to the day from when Madeline McCann went missing, another little girl, Inga Gericke, disappeared. The location was just 2 hours' drive from where Brueckner was living. A dark van similar to the one he owned at the time was seen leaving the abduction site, but Inga was never found. Her case and many others are now being re-examined.
I think that there are more victims of our suspect, of other crime.
But do you fear that you are dealing with a serial killer?
I don't know. I'm not able to judge this.
On June the 4th this year, prosecutor Walters announced Brueckner was the prime suspect in Maddie McCann's abduction and probable murder. Do you have irrefutable evidence that Madeline McCann is dead?
We have strong evidence that Madeline McCann is dead and that our suspect killed her. But I'm not allowed and I'm not able at the moment to tell you all the details of our evidence.
You don't have a body, obviously.
Yes. We don't have the body and no parts of the body, but we have enough evidence to say our suspect killed Madeline McCann.
And can I ask you this, how long ago did you realise that Madeline McCann was dead?
It was sometime in the last 2 years when we realized that she's dead.
Whatever is fueling the certainty of German prosecutors now, it began with Kate and Jerry McCann and their unflagging appeal to the public for information. In the years following Maddie's disappearance, the McCanns appeared twice on German TV, and each time there were tip-offs. The first in 2013, just the name, Christian Brueckner. It put him on the police radar, and inquiries began.
One of the bigger mistakes that has been made was that after Kate and Jerry McCann came to a German TV show, and after this show where they were showing an e-fit of a person that was seen around the Ocean Club at the night of the disappearance, apparently there was a hint from a viewer. It said, "This e-fit reminds me a lot of a person I know, a German who was living there in the area, who was living in a camper bus. This could very well be him."
Leading his team for Germany's Bild magazine, Kai Feldhaus recalls the moment in 2013 when Brueckner was identified by a viewer, and the astonishing blunder that followed when police inadvertently alerted Brueckner that he was a suspect.
And then maybe the major mistake in the investigation happened, that the local police sent a letter to Christian B asking him to show up as a witness at the police station and tell him about what he knows about the disappearance of Madeline McCann. He was alerted that he might be involved in this crime case.
It was a serious error. Brueckner realised he was in police sights as he told friends.
One day I went to the kiosk and he was distressed and said, "Look what I've just got," and showed me the police letter about Madeleine McCain.
Brueckner never did show up for the police, but in 2015 they uncovered a dark clue.
Christian B, they found material which, according to the current information, is like 8,000 pieces, videos and pictures. And this is quite typical for these kind of offenders. They are filming what they do, and sometimes they are fantasizing about their crimes every day and every night, over and over and over and over again.
Brueckner's lair revealed many secrets, and not just his ghastly buried trove of videos. There was more.
And over there was where his American camper was parked, 10 meters long.
In his camper van, police discovered the swimsuits of little girls. In 2017, Kate and Jerry McCann's German TV interview was replayed on the 10th anniversary of Maddie's disappearance. This time, the public response brought gold. Eyewitness reports that Brueckner made a drunken confession about Maddie McCann. Reports too that friends saw the video of Brueckner's appalling rape of an elderly woman in Portugal in 2005. Evidence which would lead to his conviction in that case.
There's been a couple of witnesses that alerted police and said, "We have seen video. We have seen videos of Christian B raping women.
With Christian Brueckner now under investigation, Kai Feldhaus believes the story he's been covering for 13 years may be reaching its final chapter.
I think the suspect who's been named by the German authorities is the most important suspect in this 13 years of the story of the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. There has never been a proper suspect.
But just what is the police evidence in this devastating case of Maddie and the monster?
In Praia da Luz in Portugal.
The public prosecutor's office is investigating a 43-year-old German national on suspicion of murder.
Is this the endgame in the case of the mysterious disappearance of 3-year-old Madeline McCann? Police teams continue to forensically search properties in Portugal and Germany, looking for evidence involving their prime suspect, sex predator Christian Brueckner.
I was sitting in a restaurant with friends when my editor phoned me, and you know, when the editor's phoning at 10 p.m, there's something serious happening.
I think that this is the strongest lead I've ever seen since the first beginning of this investigation.
But what is the smoking gun evidence that has convinced German authorities they have their man? What you're saying to me is that you can place Christian Brueckner at the scene.
Yes, we think so. We know that the phone number which was used by our suspect on the 3rd of May 2007 was connecting in the mast belongs to the Ocean Club in Praia da Luz.
Maddie was abducted between 9 and 10 p.m. on the night of May the 3rd, 2007. In the aftermath, Portuguese investigators scoured mobile phone logs for the area that night, but found nothing. The logs were passed on to the UK Scotland Yard, which set up Operation Grange, a special team of officers tasked with finding Maddie.
I speak from personal experience that there was a phenomenal amount of data relating to personal phone. So you'd want to look at a pattern of did that individual have a phone number? Did that phone number appear? It's a huge amount of data, massive, massive amount of data. It is the classic haystack into which you're looking for not just a needle, but the head of a needle.
But Scotland Yard's Operation Grange also failed to find the needle in the mobile phone logs. It was the Germans who made the breakthrough. A phone number traced to someone with a criminal record for child sex offences in their country. Buried in the data is a single call on May 3rd, 2007, triangulated by police to have been made just outside the Ocean Club. The phone number was Christian Brueckner's. There has always been speculation that an insider at the Tapas Bar, where the McCanns were having dinner, tipped off Maddie's abductor. In their reservation entry, it was noted the McCanns wanted to eat close to their apartment as they were leaving their young children alone.
Christian Brueckner couldn't have acted alone. That was the phone call that he was doing to someone that helped him that night. I think that someone must have been implicated. It's very difficult to understand he could have done this by himself.
German prosecutors also discovered that the day after Madeleine's disappearance, Brueckner deregistered the Jaguar car he owned. And identikit photos based on eyewitnesses at the Ocean Club revealed a striking similarity to Brueckner. But perhaps the strongest evidence German prosecutors may have that Madeleine is no longer alive is contained in the 8,000 videos they unearthed in his desolate hideaway in Germany.
I'm quite sure that they have some good evidence. It could be videos. I mean, he was into child pornography and torture, and he did crimes against children at a very early age. And according to the current information, he also filmed his offenses, so you can clearly say what happened there.
He is innocent until proven guilty.
Christian Brueckner's defense lawyer, Frederick Fulcher, is tight-lipped about whether he has even asked his client about Madeleine McCann.
So, you don't know if I asked him. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if I had asked him, I won't tell you his answer because everything the defense lawyer talks with his client is confidential.
Fulcher is as strangely cryptic as he claims to be confident in Brueckner. Confident certainly that Brueckner will never cooperate with the German prosecutors.
Before my client is cooperating with the prosecutor's office, you can order holy water as a long drink in hell.
Whatever the critical new evidence German prosecutors possess, including what they may have unearthed in recent days and weeks, for now they're keeping it to themselves. Although Prosecutor Wolters may have given us a hint. We do know that police recovered thousands of files of disturbing pictures and videos that you believe belong to Christian Brueckner. Is there evidence on those videos of Madeleine McCann?
At the moment, I'm not allowed to say if there are pictures or if there are no pictures of Madeleine.
Given the German investigators have said very clearly that they believe Madeleine McCann is dead, do you accept that they must have significant information?
My experience of working with the German police is that they are very careful what they say publicly. They would have recognised the significance of it, they would have recognised the international sensitivity of it, and they would probably have recognised the public interest in it. And so the fact that they have made that statement is of itself significant.
If the German authorities do have video proving Madeleine's death, together with the mobile phone trace proving Brueckner was in the area, then evidence from an eyewitness conclusively putting him at the Ocean Club between 9 and 10 p.m. on the night of May 3rd, 2007, would be the last piece of the puzzle. And for Jerry and Kate McCann, the final, terrible truth. A truth that may already be known.